A very good evening, everyone. It is a privilege to welcome Rakesh Sharma ji, a distinguished officer of the Indian Air Force and the first Indian to travel to space in 1984. His journey marked a proud moment for our country, and his words from orbit, Saare Jahan Se Achha, continue to resonate with us all. Sir, it is an honor to have you with us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayank. Let me give your audience a kind of a background how we have moved. You see, the way I look at it is that humanity has always been inspired by what it has seen. And so if you take that thought further, humans were never meant to fly. They never had the design and the system. We were really never meant to leave Earth. But then humans saw birds fly, and naturally they want to emulate the bird. So if we don't believe in our mythology or our ancient civilization that they used to fly around in wooden khatolas, we must at least admit that Orville Wright was the first human to get airborne in a heavier than air machine, and this was way back in 1903. But by 1940, aircraft we started using them. When I say we, of course, I mean humans. They were used to drop bombs in the First World War onto these hapless soldiers hiding in the bunker. And by 1961, the first human had orbited the Earth, and we all know who that was, Yuri Gagarin. And by 69, just about 8 years later, so about 8 years later, in 1969, already Armstrong was walking on the moon. So look at the way technology has sped along. And taking this further, I'm reminded of the first flight of the Soviet AN-22, the AN-22, AN-225 rather, the Miria. It's a huge aircraft with a cavernous fuselage from inside to basically carry outsized cargo. It was designed specifically for the Russian shuttle, which was the Buran. And I am bringing that into this conversation because this aircraft, the AN-225, the Miria, had 32 wheels. And it was so big that if Orville Wright had decided to do his first flight, it could have been done inside this aeroplane. That's how big it was, because Orville Wright's first flight was just about 100 odd feet. So in 66 years, not only has the human learned how to fly, he has stepped onto the moon. And why the moon? Because, well, it was there. And just as the first man looked up at the bird and wanted to fly, similarly, you look up and see the moon and you want to visit it. So where do we go from here? I think if you look at our own country, and once as the Prime Minister has already made known, the Bharatiya Antariksh Station takes its position in near-Earth orbit, we will have a permanent Indian presence in near-Earth orbit. And really, that would be when space exploration and research space-related sciences actually begin for our country. And till that does not happen, we will continue to collaborate with Russia, America. We haven't yet started, hopefully with China as well. So our collaboration with Russia, apart from the satellite technology, which we have collaborated with them. I got to fly on a Russian launcher and docked with the Russian Orbital Laboratory. And likewise, Subhanshu, he flew with the Americans and docked with the International Space Station. But all of this, what I'm talking about, the future, will only happen if humanity does not wipe itself off the Earth. If I share, all of you are on WhatsApp, and if I share what I read on WhatsApp the other day, I found it extremely amusing, but so true. And there was this guy who observed that humans are spending millions and millions of dollars to look for life out there in space, but is also spending trillions of dollars, not millions, but trillions of dollars to ensure that life ceases to exist on planet Earth. And I say that because human conflict is all over the place, all over. There are more than 100 human conflicts going on around planet Earth. Myanmar, Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East, Africa, the Houthis, you name it. any part of the globe and there is a human conflict on. That's not all. There are other existential threats. Take the environment. It's becoming so difficult to manage climate events, and the rate at which we are expending the finite resources of planet Earth, it far outstrips the renewable, because the Earth has finite resources and we are busy expending them at an alarming rate. So we will soon probably eat ourselves out of the only home we will ever have. So this really is both a good start, which is probably leading towards a bleak scenario. But coming back to what we are involved in now, and probably specifically institutions like yours, and I refer to JanyuTech Technologies, the way AI has come and tried to alter our lives, the way robotics is coming into the fray and making things possible. Talking of robots and space, I can see that in future, instead of astronauts having to step out of the spaceship to do hazardous work, like change the solar panel, which over time gets pitted with micro meteorites and therefore loses its function, and they need to be replaced while the space station is in orbit. So that is a job which can be done by a robot. Now, maybe I can segue into what makes it so dangerous for humans to do it. See, the thing is that the space station is flying around the Earth at something like 7.3 kilometers per second, and so is everything else. And in case there is a collision, shall we say, between two celestial objects, it breaks into innumerable other celestial objects, smaller in size, but all traveling at that velocity. So if even, and the other thing is, when a human being steps outside the space station, he carries with him the entire life-saving environment required to exist in space. By that I mean that his space suit is inflated to give him artificial pressure, as if it is a confined area, like it is in our civil aviation aircraft when we are flying from point A to B. You're carrying that life-saving environment with you, pressure, oxygen, and because of which, the thing is that the higher you go, the atmospheric pressure drops, and when you are in near Earth orbit, it's almost zero, it's close to vacuum. So the body temperature itself is adequate to boil your body fluid. Therefore, you need to wear a spacesuit which is inflated and which exerts a pressure onto your skin, thus mimicking as if you are on Earth, or at worst in a civil aircraft, which is also pressurized. So you're carrying the pressurization system with you. Now, when you're outside the spacecraft, and even if a micrometeorite punctures your spacesuit and goes through, what happens is an explosive decompression. So all the pressure leaks out of the suit, and within seconds, your bodily fluids boil and you're dead. So this is a hazardous thing. Why not have a robot which is controlled from inside the spacecraft by humans do this kind of a hazardous job? So that's what it is going to be in future. Like, for example, you're going to set up colonies on the moon. When you set up colonies on the moon, the challenges which are going to be there is, of course, you cannot carry each brick from Earth. It's not energy intensive. You're going to, each kilogram going up takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of combustible hydrogen, oxygen, and all of this or a cryo fuel, and all of that weighs. So you're going to carry that to near Earth orbit or to the moon later, away from Earth's orbit. So instead of doing that, why not find the moon dust or what you have on the moon and use that as a building block? And the moon itself, as you know, the temperature varies from plus 60 degrees to freezing below zero. So to have humans working, either they'll have to work with their inflatable spacesuits, which is not the best way to build habitats for humans, and again have robots doing that kind of job in that kind of environment. So there's a lot that can be done, but for us to reach that stage, we need to save this planet Earth, because it's the only life life-giving planet till as far as the eye can see, or at least till as far as the James Webb telescope can see, Hubble before that. There is no other habitable place till as far till what we know today, and thus the search for life. But the kind of life you're going to find, nothing like us, is going to be small organism in our Milky Way, at least. So let's see where we are going with that. So with this as a kind of a curtain raiser of where we have come from and where we are headed, and the time in between, some lucky folks, 600 plus people who are just like you, have had the opportunity to have a look at our planet from space. And what strikes all of us is the extreme fragility of our planet. It appears quite defensive. For example, during my flight, I saw a section of a forest fire burning in today's Myanmar, Burma at that time. And the plume of smoke could be seen from space. It was rising, and due to the upper winds, it was traveling right across Indonesia. So what does that tell us? It tells us that pollution is not a respecter, does not respect national boundaries. So not only our economies are interconnected, but so is our environment. And a local event can have a global effect. So these are the challenges we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis while our humanity goes out and tries to look for another habitat. Should we be looking for another habitat? I think the answer is yes. And why should we be looking for another? Reason being that the human genome does not have a back. If tomorrow an asteroid strikes planet Earth, it's going to cause mayhem, and the civilization that as we know it today, I'm referring to the human civilization, is not going to exist. So it would be such a pity that if the entire human civilization were cease to exist because of a cosmic event. So you have to have a human genome and a backup, some of us humans living elsewhere, in the unlikely event. Because today we also have a technology where we can go out, intercept that asteroid, nudge it ever so slightly, so that it misses planet Earth altogether and continues on its celestial walk. So there's lots happening. A lot more is going to happen. We need to be alive and awake to the challenges that we will have to face, and we must alter the trajectory of the kind of life we are living, because I think we have to also make sure that the kind of society we create, say on the moon or any other, Mars or wherever, has to be fundamentally different to what we have done up till now on planet Earth. Development future has to be sustained. What we are now going through is non-sustainable. Like I had explained earlier, we are consuming resources much faster than they can be replenished. So let us not, what we should be really doing from here onwards is try to restore all that is beautiful here. We need to recreate heaven right here on Earth instead of creating another far off hell on either the moon or on Mars or wherever. So with these words and sentiments, I would like to end and keep it open for your Q&A.
Thank you, Rakesh Sharma, sir. I'm very lucky to listen to your speech today. I wanted to ask, what all things you did in the space station?
What all?
Work did you do in the space station?
When I 1984, when I launched into space, I had docked with the Soviet space station called Salyut 7. Now, Salyut 7 had a multispectral camera on board, and we used that camera to take photographs, remote sensing photographs of the Indian landmass, and those photographs became the database of what the Indian landmass looked like and contained by way of minerals, etc. in 1984. And later on, when ISRO launched the IRS satellites, Indian remote sensing satellites, we had a benchmark to go against to be able to see the degradation that happens. And now with the IRS, of course, we are in a much better place because satellite data is helping our economy. So that was one. It was called the Terra experiment. The other experiment was in the domain of material science. What happens is that on Earth, when you try to make a crystal, we try to create a crystal of silver and germanium because silver and germanium, if you try and make a crystal of that on Earth, because of the presence of gravity, once you melt both the elements and it starts cooling, then because of gravity, the seed, the crystallization starts at the very bottom. But the weight of the melt on top, what it does is that the structure of the crystal is not perfect. So it's weighted down towards the lower end and not so even at the upper. So this experiment we had done in orbit. There was an oven in orbit, and we or rockets which in the terminal phases are have to be guided autonomously. You can have a television camera there, and it can keep comparing the target with the satellite image taken earlier and navigate itself towards the target. So this is just one of the uses. So apart from this remote sensing and material science experiment, there was a lot of biomedical experiments which I had done. One of them was yoga. The other was check out the biomechanical activity of the heart. When you are using sensitive sensors to see how the heart function takes place, what happens is that because you're on the ground, there are vibrations either due to the fan or due to some machinery around. So it gets transmitted onto the sensor. Whereas in space, when you repeat the same experiment with the same sensor, because you're floating and your feet are not planted anywhere, so therefore that vibrational element is removed and you get a much better record. So these are the experiments which we...
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. I'm Prithvi from Hyderabad. I work as a principal UX design manager. I graduated from IIT Kanpur. It's an honor meeting you. I remember my grandmother talking about and the event, and also many around India naming their children Rakesh, who were born around that time. So it's a very fond memory. It's an honor. Sir, you mentioned about a couple of things on humanity and the necessity for the new society that we develop elsewhere being a better society. It was good to hear you represent humanity when you said when we started flight, and you said when humans started flight, than representing a nation. I wanted your inputs on where and how that change can start. One way to look at it is start from the children now, and how would you say that we inculcate the thought process and the insight about looking at ourselves as a humanity as a whole rather than competing and creating better societies?
Yeah, what I said is very easy to say, and I'm the first to admit that it's a real challenging task, primarily because we have let ourselves slide so far down that to return to the correct trajectory is going to be a humongous task. There's no two ways about it. And you're right. The only hope we have is the younger generation. My generation, and to a certain extent your generation, I think we have failed our future generation. A, we have not taken care of our home planet, and B, we have become such an exclusive society, even though our civilizational ethos is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which says that the earth is one family, but we have not practiced. So we need to return back to those thoughts. Whether we replicate Gurukuls, I don't know. I think what we need to do is borrow the concepts of the past, make it more effective, because today we have got so many tools to influence the thinking of humans in a much better way. Earlier, you never had books. Now we don't not only have books, we have audio-visual content. Tomorrow, everything is going to probably be a lot more immersive. So we need to leverage technology without forgetting the basics of how human behavior can be modified. And I've always wondered, why is it that we keep spending so much money researching how a bird flies from Africa to Antarctica, but we've never put any money to to find out how can a human's mind change and become more empathetic, become more. See, we must celebrate the fact that we are humans and not animals. And I believe that we have not yet leveraged a lot of our potential, and we've held ourselves back, and we have regressed it and certainly not progressed in this particular. So yes, education and using modern tools, and I think that's the way. And of course, there's no accountability. We should have viable agents that can audit and that can, ensure that everybody moves along a just line. The United Nations, as you know, has become toothless. It's become toothless only because the stronger nations have usurped their authority, and they have done what they want to do. Again, because their approach is exclusive. So educate the next generation, bring in concepts of inclusivity, and actually make sure that the changes, and when now that we are setting up societies in a different place, at least there from the scratch you can make changes rather than deal with legacy issues, which is much more difficult on earth.
So of course, a privilege listening to you. Thank you so much for being here. So I had two questions to ask as a quick follow-up to the discussion that we've been having. The first has to do with your own mission in 1984. Now, of course, there's something that you read on Wikipedia or in the GK books, but let me ask you, when you launched in 1984, was it a single mission, or was there a national plan at that point to build upon it and potentially create a manned program that seems to be happening now with Gaganyaan? And the follow-up question was this, which is just a thought. What made the US program, I think, stand out with the Apollo missions was that it was literally, there was this Apollo moment, in the sense that it really spurred the entire US aerospace industry, and with it the science industry. And that's where science and engineering in the US just exploded from that point on. The question is, while our space program grew, as you correctly pointed out right now, in the benefit of the Indian nation, creating value with relatively frugal resources, what do you think we are missing in terms of that Apollo moment, where the space program, which has inspired people, now starts to genuinely spur science in the country? Ultimately, if we decide to launch a space station, it should host Indian experiments designed to benefit the Indian industry and the Indian market. So where do you think we are on that front? Sorry, it might be a little bit of an abstract question, but to me that...
No, I don't think it's an abstract question. I think it gives us a window of opportunity to affect our cultural ethos onto global thinking. And our cultural ethos really is the inclusive nature. Every prime minister that has spoken from the United Nations podium has always mentioned Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. But we have never, there's nothing on the ground which demonstrates it. The only allusion, the only person who has alluded to that concept was when Prime Minister Modi sent vaccines to other countries. All right, that was an expression of our inclusive thinking. I think where we can now contribute basically by collaborating, and we have already demonstrated this in small measure. For example, when the little bit of exploration which we've already done, whether it was to Mars, whether it was to the South Pole of the moon, we have always shared our data. We have not kept it to us. So we have demonstrated our intent to be inclusive. And that's the only way to be. And only if we continue walking our talk will we be able to influence others. And like I had said, we have already earned a place on the high table of writing space policy. I think this is you can call this our Apollo moment to transform global thinking on this. Because the Apollo moment was really the cherry on the Cold War cake, right? Yeah. Because the Apollo moment was in response to who's the winner of the Cold War. And it was a silly race, because if you really are, whether America or Russia were ahead in the space race in the 1950s, mid-50s, the answer to that is that the nation which had the better German scientists, they were ahead. Okay. So they got into this space race just to be able to say that we were there first, and therefore democracy is better than communism. Okay. Now that again is an abstract construct. What Russia retaliated with, why did you send humans out there we've sent unmanned things, we got the same amount of soil back. And indeed, that was the end of the space race. It was meaningless. Nobody went back to the moon till now. Artemis is thinking of going back now. So that is what has happened. So we have allowed a lonely furrow. Our whole focus was different. I believe that what ISRO has done for India, India is capable of doing first for the region, and that would be the proof of concept for the world to see, and then this region will be able to do for the world. That is inclusive living. And this will stand us in good stead when we set up a society elsewhere. These are
Correct.
First question is how you got selected for this mission. I mean, there must be a very stringent evaluation process, and for that matter, everyone in the Air Force must have been wanted to be chosen for this mission. How you got selected? And the second question is what kind of physical and mental training you had to undergo before proceeding on?
Okay, how I got selected, what happened was that Russia, I have just mentioned that there was this ideological race between America and Soviet Union, the then Soviet Union. And we, because America was backing Pakistan, so we had to have a counterbalance weight, and we went along with Russia. So Russia wanted to demonstrate to the world that a country like India is with them. So it became important for Soviet Union to show the world that they offered the space flight to India. So it was a geopolitical offer, loaded. And Mrs. Gandhi, who was the Prime Minister at that time, went to ISRO and said, okay, this is what it is. So you guys select somebody and let them go with the Soviet Union so that Soviet Union can crow about it. That, see, India is in our block. Now, ISRO said, thank you very much. We are focused and very busy on the satellite applications arena, and we don't like to mess around with this. So Mrs. Gandhi then kept quiet, and then there was pressure again from the Soviet Union. Finally, she offered it to the Indian Air Force, thankfully. And at that time, I was young. And around the corner, there was the general elections were around the corner, and Mrs. Gandhi said it would help the cause of the Congress, that it is very forward-looking in science and technology, and thinking of ISRO was already there, so we are now sending our guy. So one was a geopolitical optic and one was the national. So these two things were together, and it worked for my benefit because the general election was round the corner. Mr. Gandhi said, listen, I want this to be done immediately. And the Russians said, well, you're not giving us enough time. It takes a while to train guys to go up into space. And the Russians said, all right, we'll take the challenge, provided you supply us with test pilots. Because test pilots, by virtue of their specialization, are supposed to come up to speed fast enough. So that long list from the Air Force, which were limited to fighter pilots, got whittled down. And now we were looking at test pilots. So like I said, I was young, I was fit, and I was a test pilot. So I came into this shortlist, and essentially, I don't know what the criterion was, and I don't care because I made it. You don't look gift horses in the mouth, so I've not looked at that gift horse in the mouth. But I'm just guessing at physical fitness, psychological profile. Perhaps these were the things that I don't know.
The kind of training you had to go, physical and
training. Yeah, so training was, essentially, if you look at why a certain training is required, because when you go into space, then a lot of changes happen to the human body. So that kind of training is required. For example, G forces. You're going to experience positive gravity forces during the ascent and during the re-entry. So they put you in a centrifuge and turn you around, and you experience 8 times the force of gravity. They put you on an aircraft and make it follow a parabolic path so that for 30 seconds zero gravity exists within the aircraft. So these were things which were given, we were given a taste of, but most of the learning was on the job. So this was the training. For example, they would make you lie down, head down and feet up when you go to sleep, because the human body had to get used to having extra blood in the head. And why was that required? The thing is that the heart is pumping against gravity on Earth, and it's pumping at a higher flow rate and pressure so that the blood, enough blood reaches the head. Now, you remove gravity from the equation and nobody's told the heart that you've changed your location. So the heart continues pumping at the old rate. And what's the result? Your face swells up, there's too much blood in the head. So there are pressure receptors in your neck which send a signal to the heart and tells the heart, relax, slow down. You don't need to work so much. So the heart rate drops and you come to the new normal, which is what is there in zero gravity. So your body is trained for that kind. So this was the essential training and physical training. One other test during the medical test was to lock you up solitary confinement for 72 hours. Artificial light, no watch, no radio, no television, no book, nothing. You're there with yourself and you're trapped in this room and they're observing you and periodically checking whether there's been a degradation in your cognitive ability, any degradation in your computational skills. So that's how these were the 10.
Basically, I also graduated in 1984, and the time you were in space, I was struggling with my final year mechanical engineering papers in April 84. So just to put to context to the younger generation here, it's nearly 41 years since this has all passed. But one memory which has never eroded me over these 40 years is your statement to Mrs. Gandhi that night. I remember still very clearly on a black and white set, probably I heard it. When you from space replied to her that when she asked, how does India look? And you said, Saare Jahan Se Achha. And I think you really gave us goosebumps. And I think over the years, maybe Iqbalji has written that many, many years back. But the last 40 years, your tone, your response has really made an indelible mark on many generations. So I would thank you, sir, for that statement. But just an off-the-record question, which you may choose to answer or not. Was it an extempore reaction that you had? Or was it something that was sort of told to you? If you want to answer, you can answer. You can answer it separately. I don't want to push you on that.
No.
So,
If I don't answer it, you will think that I was told to say it, and I don't want to admit that. The truth is, I think you must, if you ever get to meet Subhanshu, you can ask him, and he will vouch for what I said. And I said what I said for two reasons. One was India truly, you see, she asked me, how does India look from space? So I was answering that specific question. How does India look? And if I may just briefly repeat how India looks, if you just look at our map, look at the long coastline we have. And when you, from space, when you see the coastline, there, the ocean goes through 4 or 5 shades of blue till it comes to the ocean. So you see that. And our country, if you look at the peninsular, has got the Ghats, which are green. It has got the plains, the Deccan Plateau, which is brown. It has got the Madhya Pradesh, which is really dry. It has got the Gangetic Plain, which is again a deep emerald green, which has got the Himalayas, which look purple from there because sunlight cannot get into the crevices of the hills. So there is nothing that our relatively small landmass has got. It has got rivers, it has got vegetation, it has got deserts which appear golden, it has got plains, it has got tropical forests, it has got mountains. And why Saare Jahan Se Achha? Because when I was a student, we used to sing Saare Jahan Se Achha immediately after the national anthem.
Correct.
Day after day. So it was top of recall and it seemed to fit with the visuals. And that's how it came out.
Thank you, sir.